3,211 votes that carried the day for William Ruto to the rejected votes column in order to force a runoff.
Professor Abdi Guliye took the stand Monday after the tribunal had heard the testimony of the senior security officer at the Yaya apartment complex, John Pile.
I got a few information that there are VIPs who are arriving at the hotel.
Yes?
Yeah.
And that's why you went to usher her in?
No, I just met them at the basement area.
Yes.
And I showed them the way to the reception area.
Commissioner Masit's legal team put to task Commissioner Guliye to explain the events that took place in the early hours of August 15, 2022, and later in the day, a few hours before Chairperson Chebukati took to the podium to announce William Ruto as the winner of that election.
If we declare that the results to go in one way, as he explained, which was in favor of William Ruto, that the country was going to ban.
Guliye said that another team, which he alleged had been sent as emissaries from quarters he wasn't quite sure about, gave a similar message to the commissioners that their ultimate announcement should consider the greater good of the nation and thus not be made lightly.
We didn't even know who was the winner. And in any case, the Constitution defines how to announce the winner. So for me, it was not in order for anyone to assert that somebody should be declared a winner.
The tribunal also heard that after the team from the National Security Council left, the commission held a brief discussion in which Chairperson Wafula Chebukati asked the team to give their views on the discussions of both meetings that day.
What the NSAC asked us to moderate.
To moderate what results, and there are no results.
Maybe they knew, we don't know, because the results have been on public photo for 6 days.
But at least there are no results as per the law.
To us, there is no result before us.
The Cherera Four, including Irene Masit, are alleged to have requested Chebukati to move 233,000 plus votes that determined William Ruto's win to the rejected votes bin in order to take the country for a second round of voting, which Chebukati and the two commissioners Molo and Guliye rejected.
They, of course, casted aspersions on the results that the chair was going to announce, and this was contrary to our oath of office.
The Azimio One Kenya Alliance Party sought to be enjoined in the case, stating that there were several mentions of the party and its leaders, and thus it is important for them to be enjoined in the hearing.
That Chebukati allowed non-people, non-IBC commissioners to be heard, to be listened to. We don't know how much they carried to that office or what they were told to bring, and they never brought. So those are the issues. We hope tomorrow we'll be filing our papers to defend Azimio.
The petitioners are expected to present to witnesses before the committee Tuesday, among them Wafula Chebukati, the immediate former chairperson of IEBC, where they hope to delve deeper into the allegations against Commissioner Irene Masit, as she also prepares to defend herself against the allegations. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
And that report by Leila Mohammed forms the basis of this next one by Zainab Ismail. President William Ruto has assented to the IEBC Amendment Bill of 2022, paving way for the formation of a 7-member selection panel that will be tasked with the recruitment of a new IEBC chairperson and commissioners. This follows the retirement of the electoral body chair, Wafula Chebukati, Commissioners Boya Molu and Abdi Guliye, as well as the controversial resignation of Juliana Cherera, Justice Nyang'aya, and Francis Wanderi. So, does the ongoing tribunal bear any impact on the recruitment process? NTV's Zainab Ismail, as I mentioned, interrogates.
By signing the IEBC Act into law, President William Ruto has kick-started the process of reconstituting the electoral body. The law states that a selection panel has to be formed at least 6 months before the lapse of the term of the chairperson, a member of the commission, or in this instance, within 14 days of the declaration of a vacancy.
By definition, the commission is the commissioners and the secretariat. If one component is missing, you cannot argue that you have a commission in place. So right now, strictly speaking, we do not have a commission.
Let us pray.
Last week, the Senate passed the IEBC bill into law, which sought to alter the composition of the selection panel that would oversee the filling of the vacant positions in the electoral agency. The bill proposes to reduce the allocation of the Parliamentary Service Commission slots from the current 4 to 2. The Interreligious Council of Kenya will have 2 slots and 1 slot each for the Public Service Commission, the Political Parties Liaison Committee and the Law Society of Kenya. According to the IEBC Act, a person is qualified to be appointed as a member of the selection panel, must be a Kenyan citizen, meets the requirements of leadership and integrity set out in Chapter 6 of the Constitution, and holds a degree from a university recognized in Kenya. The IEBC Act stipulates that the nominating bodies shall, within 7 days of the declaration of a vacancy, submit the names of their nominees to the Parliamentary Service Commission for transmission to the President for appointment. In its first sitting, the panel must elect a chairperson and vice-chairperson from amongst its members and determine their own procedure. The selection panel shall then, within 7 days of its appointment, invite applications from qualified persons and publish the names of all the applicants and their qualification in the Gazette, 2 newspapers of national circulation, and on the PSC website. Now, the panel will then consider the applications, shortlist and interview the applicants. The interviews will be conducted in public. After the interviews, the panel will select 2 persons to be appointed chairperson and vice-chairperson and 9 persons qualified to be appointed as members of the commission, and forward the names to the president for nomination of 1 person for appointment as the chair and 6 persons as members. The president shall then, within 7 days of receipt of the names, forward the list to the National Assembly for approval. If approved by the National Assembly, the President then shall, within 7 days of the receipt of the names, appoint the Chair and members of the Commission in accordance with the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act. However, as the Justice Aggrey Muchelule-led tribunal continues to probe the conduct of the 4 dissenting commissioners, only Irene Masit, who is yet to resign, continues to fight off allegations of violation of the Constitution and gross misconduct.
Her slot would not be advertised, because then that would be prejudicial to her. He would be assuming that the tribunal would end up removing her, recommending her removal.
So what happens if Commissioner Masit sails through the tribunal?
The High Court found that is Justice Anthony Mrima, that Commissioner Masit had in fact participated in party primaries in the last election and therefore had not cleared the constitutional threshold time frame of more than 5 years. But the court saved her appointment for reason that there were only 2 ladies at the commission, herself and the vice chairperson, which is Juliana Cherera. So what is outstanding now is for someone to move the High Court for interpretation of Justice Anthony Mrima's judgment as to whether, now that the elections are over, does Commissioner Masit still qualify to serve? And then the High Court would give an opinion which can then lead to a removal.
And with the uncertain timelines on whether the tribunal will make its final ruling, Masit's slot in the commission will have to remain pending unless a consensus is reached upon.
It would make sense for the president to hold on a bit to allow the tribunal to finalize its work. If the tribunal's timelines are unknown and you can't tell when they would render their ruling, then it makes sense just to jumpstart the process, would then re-advertise afresh, the costs and the time and the resources notwithstanding.
Zainab Ismail, NTV.
Now, just before we get into the dailies, let's take a look at what your members of Parliament were up to. Well, they stormed out of an induction meeting held in Mombasa, demanding for the release of the National Government Constituency Development Fund. The lawmakers further said they will also boycott all sittings in the National Assembly if the money is not paid. NTV's Kevin Mutai with that report.
Members of Parliament are aggrieved by the failure of the National Treasury to disburse Constituency Development Fund monies to their respective constituencies.
We are coming here to be given chips and sausages. I'm telling you, we have enough money for our sausages. We have enough money from our salaries to buy sausages and stay in good hotels. We have stopped this meeting officially from now. And we shall not go back to that hall for a meeting.
The money we are spending here, let them add on what they have and let them disperse it as CDF. There will be no further proceedings of Parliament if CDF is not released.
There's no need for us to enjoy taxpayers' money here, whereas the Kenyans, who are our bosses, who elected us, are suffering there outside.
Over 300 legislators from both sides of the political divide unanimously agreed to walk out from the induction workshop that was expected to take 5 days in Mombasa, saying they have no bursaries to give their constituents as schools reopen.
Leo karibu shule zote za Northern Kenya hazifunguliwi kwa sababu hakuna karo. Kwa hivyo tunahitaji serikali iharakishe mambo ya CDF.
Wanafunzi wengi wako manyumbani kwetu saizi wanangoja msaada kutoka kwa waheshimiwa. Na sisi kama waheshimiwa hatuna cha kuwapatia kwa sababu serikali hajatupatia CDF.
Kwa hivyo wasituweke blood pressure. Tafadhali walipe ndio tuendelee na hii mkutano. Otherwise tunatoka tunaenda.
No CDF, no induction.
The lawmakers are blaming Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndung'u of not keeping the promise of releasing at least 20 billion shillings meant for CDF, despite the funds having been passed in the budget for the 2022-2023 financial year.
Tunamuomba CS Treasury ya kwamba wewe ulisema ya kwamba utapatia constituencies bilioni 10 na ulikuwa upeane bilioni 2 kwa kila wiki 2.
Na rais wetu amekuwa akisema kwamba tusaidie mambo ya elimu na amekuwa kwa kipao mbele akitaja mambo ya elimu, lakini nashangaa kwamba ni nani huyu amekataa kutoa pesa hizo.
The MPs were expected to discuss various issues such as familiarization with the rules and procedures of the House, budget-making processes, and formulation of laws, among others, as per the Article 124 of the Constitution, which mandates Parliament to establish committees.
They call us. They told us to go to recess, watatuma pesa. Tulipofika manyumbani, wakakuwa wanachezea mchezo wa paka na panya. Wakafikiria tutarudi. Tukarudi Mombasa, tukasema hiyo mkutano kwisha. Itasimama mpaka pesa tupewe.
Kama hamuna pesa, hamuna induction. Kwa sababu watoto wa maskini wako nyumbani. Watoto wa matajiri wako shule.
The impasse is expected to continue as MPs remain adamant, saying that they'll boycott the induction meeting until Treasury releases the National Government Constituency Development Funds. Kevin Mutai, NTV in the county of Mombasa.
Mapambano, mapambano, bado mapambano. I'm surprised that those chants were not restricted to Kamkunji, but also at a hotel in Mombasa County, where the members of Parliament were congregated for induction and post-election evaluation. I'm curious to hear what my panelists make of those chants. This morning, I'm joined by Haman Manyora, political analyst. Let me pull up the poster for today's show. I'm also joined by Gitila Naituli, a governance expert, as well as Charles Munyui. Oh, Charles, you know, he's always right the minute the clock strikes 6, he's here in studio with me. And he is a governance consultant. What are we discussing this morning? Mambo Bado. That is what we heard yesterday at Kamkunji from several leaders. And handshake will not cure rubbish 2022 poll is what Raila had to say. In fact, he used the term taka-taka, so I took the liberty of translating that. All right, but before we get into that, let me take a look at some other tweets I see here. Martin Masinde, who says, Atibado mambo ni mapambano. And if I look here, we have Ernest Njoroge, who says, all Azimio leaders to resign immediately, refund all that they have been paid by the taxpayers in solidarity with their leader. That is his view. He's saying if the election was truly taka-taka, then they have no business in office. And then let's see this one. This one is by Jay Blessed. And he says the government should allow the old man to grieve all he wants in Kamkunji for as long as he wants, but not on any grounds in the CBD. Goons should not be allowed to plunder from citizens in the CBD in the name of rallies. Any rally in the CBD is beginning of chaos. All right. Now, the top story, this informs the top story because it was a hot political day yesterday, and President William Ruto did not waste any time in responding to Raila Odinga, and hence the front page headline on the Daily Nation is Battle Royale. Azimio claims Odinga won the election, but it was stolen in favor of Ruto. A quote here of Raila Odinga's: we ask our people to say no to the UDA regime. This regime and its unfortunate and unfair policies must be resisted, and the resistance starts today. We have William Ruto responding that I want to tell them to forget about any handshake. The government is not going to be blackmailed to serve the interests of a few people and their families. Head to head, opposition leader Raila arrived in the country yesterday to a charged reception and delivered his bombshell on the disputed August 9th, 2022 presidential election. His Azimio camp will not recognize President William Ruto's win. The president accused his rival of stoking a political crisis in his quest for a handshake that he will not get. Who will blink first in this supremacy contest? I will start with Charles. What do you make of the events yesterday? Kalonzo Musyoka said the Raila who came back from South Africa is not the Raila who left.
It is interesting because it's like an echo that comes a month later after the initial sound. Because all these things are things that should have been there in court. Yeah, that's my take. They should have been there. They should have been looked at, and then a determination would have been made. My concern is, so what happens? Because now that the due process, statutory process is over, and I think the only discussion we should be having is whether the Ruto government is going to resign, because that's the only option that is there. So is the government going to resign? And if not, so what happens? Because even I think the president has said we are not going to resign. In fact, he did not even go there. He said what this gentleman wants is a piece of this cake. And remember, that is taking traction. This is the same gentleman whose team gave Ruto a hero's welcome just a week ago. So I think he's also sending mixed signals, much as he was not in the country. So these are discussions that will be had for quite a while. But of course, we'll delve into the whole situation. When you say that Ruto is reconstituting IEBC on his own, and yet you say we are a country of laws and the Constitution, and the Constitution and the laws are clear on how you populate IEBC, and that is exactly what is happening. There was an amendment, correct, to the IEBC Act, which was signed into law incidentally yesterday, and I didn't see any serious opposition to the same amendments in Parliament. If anything, part of the team that Raila is relying on was in Bunge, or was rather in State House yesterday. So it means, to a large extent, they don't have a problem with this amendment. These are positions that are going to be advertised for. These are positions that will ultimately be populated. But importantly, and I think this is where I don't understand these things, 6 months ago, 3 days ago, Raila and the president had an opportunity to give us 2 commissioners designate and the chairman designate. They had an opportunity provided for in law that 6 months to the time these commissioners are supposed to go home is provided for in law. You start the process of recruiting the positions that are going to fall vacant. They did not even look like they were interested in doing so. 6 months ago, a few days, like the day Chebukati was going home, 6 months to that time, that opportunity was there. And that is when Raila was perfectly in a good position to ensure that happened. I did not see any activity around it. So I don't understand how 6 months later, after the fact, now everyone is so excited that this populating of IEBC is being done by one individual. And I'm saying this with a lot of respect. Okay. I think there should be clarity in communication so that it is good. Obviously, he's not speaking to the likes of myself and other people. He is targeted in terms of who he wants to communicate this conversation with. But I think it also needs to be convincing to a bigger populace of this country.
Okay.
Yes.
Prof. Raila Odinga refused to recognize the legitimacy of this administration. And he said there will be no 2027 until the mess of 2022, in his words, is cleaned up. What did you make of his statements yesterday?
Wow, I think Kenyans should be very happy. They have a very vibrant society. I think we think a lot and we think very loudly, and I think that's why we are the best in East Africa. Guys, maybe not in Africa, but in East Africa we are definitely the best. So I'm okay with the noise, with the political noise on both sides. But having said that, though, you need, when there's a complaint anywhere, in my opinion, the government ought to take that complaint seriously, because the government is the one with the authority. The ones making the complaints, they can make any complaint they want. But these complaints relate to the election. Election was contested from the very beginning because they went to the Supreme Court. Now they claim to have evidence. This is what I would do if I was Ruto. If I was Ruto, I would actually order a complete recount of the vote to just put these people in their place. Because the idea of the servers, I think, is nonsense. I don't think anyone should be asking the server. They should be asking for the recount of the votes which were cast, total national recount. Because we have a weakness. Let's accept that. We have a weakness in our electoral law. If you want to steal the Kenya's election, all you have to do is to announce someone a winner. And then the Supreme Court has 2 weeks. They can't hold any recount because this streaming, these polling figures from the polling station directly to the National Tallying Center, that is where the weakness lies. Because what we need to do is to redesign those forms, decentralized transmission, so that the transmission from polling stations, because they are final in tallying, it lands at the sub-county headquarters. And then from the sub-county headquarters, you transmit to the county headquarters. Now, most counties are 11, the biggest, Kakamega, Kiambu, Meru, Nakuru, there are 11 constituencies. So at the county headquarters, you are dealing with 11 entries. What does that tell you? At the National Tallying Center, you will deal with only 47 entries because there is 47 counties. So you minimize all these little things coming from all sorts of directions so that if there is a problem, we determine that Kiambu has a problem. We can isolate Kiambu and recount. If we determine a certain constituency as a problem, we is able to isolate that constituency and recount. But you can't recount nationally. The Supreme Court knows that. Everyone knows that. That is why if you want to steal an election, a Kenyan election is so simple. I simply take your figures. Let's say we are running between you and me. You get 2,000 votes, I get 1,000, and just announce the 2,000 as mine, and give the Supreme Court the work to go and find where they are started after the announcing. So there is a problem that needs to be fixed, because for me, if this raka is not sorted out, you couldn't be planting seeds for another 207 in 2027.
All right.
So when I look at what is happening, it's good that it's happening, so that we can get the time to sort ourselves out in the next 4 years. I don't think it's clever to dismiss a complaint when you're in authority. You don't dismiss a complaint, you look at it. You say that that's your perception. I happen to have a different one, but let's talk.
Okay.
Let's find out where exactly the truth lies.
All right. Herman, Mambo Bado.
Bado.
Mambo Bado. That is what they told us at Kamkunji yesterday.
Yes.
My question to you is, Mambo Bado?
Looks like Mambo Bado. And the question is, in my view, who is making Mambo Bado Bado? Who is badoing Mambo? I think it's the president and his deputy. Because they were elected, with all this dispute, of course, given a go-ahead by the Supreme Court, sworn in, and instead of running the country, they are running politics. They are going over the country as if they are in an election. And in every opportunity they have, they throw barbs at Raila and his team. You know, instead of being in Nairobi working, they are busy moving across the country, politicking, rubbishing the opposition, and doing everything within the book to get people from the other side to come to them. Then they are inviting what Raila has done, which is that rally. So Mambo Bado, even if Mambo was not to be Bado, the president and his deputy are the ones forcing Mambo to be banned.
Raila has been provoked.
Yeah, they are provoking Raila. Yeah.
Actually, he was quite upset yesterday, if you listen to his statement with
Yeah,
regard to Rigathi Gachagwa's statements in regard to him, saying that leave him to us, this old man will deal with him. And Martha Karua actually called President William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua high school bullies. But let's take a look at what else is on the dailies. We are coming back, gentlemen. I still see on the front page here of the Daily Nation, pay boost for civil servants after review of allowances. Alarm, Central Kenya suffers brand of alcohol abuse. Living on ARVs, 2 young women born with the killer virus share their life experiences. That is on page 2 of the Daily Nation. And while local firms may soon land 20 billion shilling state contracts, let's take a look at the front page of the Business Daily, zooming in. And their front page story is mystery investors' purchase of Safaricom shares stops plunge. A mid-week block purchase of Safaricom shares by an unknown local institutional investor has halted the slide in the telco's shares that had hit a 69-month low, triggering bargain purchases. And I see here on the ticker, Treasury banking on VAT in 3.8 trillion revenue growth plan. The Treasury is eyeing value-added taxes as the segment with the highest potential for growth in its ambitious plan to expand revenue to 3.8 trillion by 2027. Public universities grapple with 38 billion shillings in employee arrears. The cash flow crisis in public universities has deepened, with unpaid salaries, wages, retirement benefits and medical cover climbing to 35.45 billion in the last, is it 35? 38.46 billion in the last financial year ending 2022. And at the bottom there, TransCentury renegotiates 5 billion shilling loans after default. Investment firm TransCentury engaged its main stakeholder, Kuramo Capital, and other lenders, including Equity Bank, to restructure loans worth 5.2 billion after defaulting on the initial terms of the debt. And Ruto administration to borrow 3.6 trillion shillings in first term. This is by Kefa Mweruri. Let's just take a gander. President William Ruto's administration is targeting to borrow 3.6 trillion in his first 5-year term, upending his plan to go slow on debt. The 3.6 trillion is equivalent to 89% of the record 4.1 trillion that his predecessor Uhuru Kenyatta borrowed in the 5 years to June 2022. At 3.6 trillion shillings, the borrowing is more than the 2.7 trillion that Mr. Kenyatta chalked up in his first term and 1 trillion that the late Mwai Kibaki borrowed in his last 5-year term. And for more detail on this, do grab your copy of the Business Daily, but definitely one to look at. Front page of the Taifa Leo. Raila atangazia serikali vita mapambano, asema hatambui urais wa Ruto na matokeo ya uchaguzi mkuu uliopita, huku akitoa masharti makali yanayotaka serikali ya Kenya Kwanza itekeleze. Ahutubia wafuasi wake Kamkunji, huku akitaja mapambano mapya dhidi ya serikali. Alafu I can see here kwa vidokezo, wabunge wasusia kikao sababu ya CDF. We saw that zaidi ya wabunge 300 watishia kutohudhuria kongamano hadi serikali iwape fedha za CDF. And so I will leave the Taifa Leo there, but I see pretty much all the dailies are going big with the Raila story. Before we take the break, and get back to that conversation, let's take a look at the front page of the Standard. Raila's bombshell. Opposition leader says Azimio will not recognize the government, calling for President William Ruto's resignation. He demands records of the last election be made public, but the president says time for threats and impunity is over. Front page of the Star. Raila breathes fire, but Ruto unshaken. President dismisses the opposition leader's protest call as ploy to negotiate a deal. A picture there on the front page of President William Ruto with elected and non-elected Members of Jubilee, that is the front page of the Star. I'm also curious about the timing of that meeting and what my panelists make of it, because Jeremiah Kioni was quite prominent at Kamkunji. So what's going on? On the other side of this break, we continue with that conversation.
My name is Michael Olunga. Watch Sport On every Monday, 10 p.m. on NTV.
You're going to take your oxtail and then you're going to brown it.
Ghana is facing its worst economic turmoil in a generation. Financial freedom is on the to-do list for most citizens, which is why I'm here to walk you through the process of creating and growing your sinking funds, critical in sorting out your pressing financial needs.
In the spirit of encouraging these women to grow financially, the initiative is further helping them do some sort of small-scale saving.
After we sell our products, we all come back here to count our money and put it in this safe.
We gathered together, got the cowtail here, got the wooden handles, looked for some pins, and we made a brush.
Mapambano, mapambano, bado mapambano. That is what came out of Kamkunji yesterday. As that was happening, we had Jubilee leaders meeting President William Ruto. Rather, before that happened, we had Jubilee leaders meeting President William Ruto at State House. And most prominent, Kanini Kega, Sabina Shege. What did you make of that development while Jeremiah Kioni was at Kamkunji?
I think it did two things. First and foremost, it tells us the president has no problem with Gachagua becoming strong in Mount Kenya region. It means his strategy for 2027 is different. It doesn't mind him becoming strong as long as he's strong on behalf of Kenya Kwanza. Remember, these guys were with Gachagua a day or two earlier. They had a sitting with the deputy president, and I want to believe that's where these plans on being in State House yesterday were mooted. And it was not a coincidence that it happened yesterday when they were supposed to be on the other side with the Azimio leadership, saying the things that Azimio was saying, which would have basically said all of us, as we were a few months ago when elections were happening, are together in terms of these decisions that are being arrived at on how to proceed from this point on. I think what the president was saying is that where Raila was relying on to win the elections is not supporting what Raila is doing at the moment in terms of the decisions he has made on how to go about the politics. So it was loud, very, very loud. And especially, I'm not even worried about Kanini Kega. I am more concerned with Sabina, who is an insider, who is an integral part of the Azimio team, not now Jubilee, Azimio. Is in the whatever it is called, the National Executive, whatever. So that was a telling statement right there. And it made Kioni look very isolated in that meeting. He was looking extremely isolated. And there's something else there. I think most of these people, especially the person of my brother Kioni, are not politically that well respected in the region right now. They did not handle Jubilee election. Forget about Azimio. They messed up Jubilee nominations in a big, big way. And don't be surprised that all those things that happened. Number one, the nominations were a sham. You go in, sit, have some manner of interview, then they decide this is him. Then that's not even the problem. There is no follow through in terms of, we know some of you are not happy. Can we have a conversation on how you will support this person that we picked based on what we thought was solid grounds on picking him? There was completely nothing you allowed to just go, just disappear. We don't care. And that's why most of these people did not win, because the people who lost in the nominations, so-called party primaries, went and vied and flopped miserably again. All of them came tumbling. So I think, to me, there should have been a discussion around how do you even first and foremost consolidate? How do you regain that confidence people had in the party, in your background, before you come nationally and now want to join the so-called national movement and declare that you represent a party called Jubilee, who's just about everyone who is elected on that platform is on the same moment, same time, on the other side. You are not elected in the first, you're just the Secretary General. The elected ones, the ones that were elected, the ones, meaning they were the ones with the people, are with the president in State House. I think these are the dynamics that need to be looked at, so that even if it's kicking out some of these people and we see Raila, the Raila we knew, going it alone and coming up with a different strategy and different individuals that would would give whatever it is that he's doing better traction. That would work for me.
Okay, Prof, what did it communicate to you?
I think it communicates really nothing. You know, the Ghanaian politicians believe only in their stomach. So wherever they feel there is personal benefit, believe me, they will go there, regardless of what the politics is telling them. But I think the weakness, and I think I support the Deputy President attempt to build himself. That is what a politician should do in the Mount Kenya region. He should continue doing that. But the problem is right here. Borrow 3.6 trillion in the first term. What this tells you is that this economy will not improve because it's already weighing down heavily within debt. What does that mean politically? It means the Central Kenya people will start running away from the politicians, because these people, the difference between the Central Kenya citizens of this country, the Mount Kenya region people, the difference between them and the rest of the Kenyans other than the Bukusu is that they are very sensitive to the economy, because these people are largely self-reliance. So when the economy does not improve, now Kioni is starting getting traction, because he's the one who is on the other side in terms of the region. And that portends big problem for Gachagua. What I saw in the Uhuru term is that Uhuru borrowed 2.9 trillion money and approved by parliament. So there's nobody who is following where did that money go. He borrowed 2.9 trillion in the domestic market, which was not approved by the National Assembly. He borrowed 1.1 trillion over 8-year period internationally, again unapproved by parliament. Okay?
And what's the basis of these figures?
No, the basis, you just go to the central bank web page, and you can harvest the figure, the way the money was being borrowed, and then you see which one was being approved by parliament, which was not approved by parliament. So you add them together, and you find that over 3 trillion That is 2.9 trillion from the domestic market. I want to tell you, for 8 years, Parliament never approved a single borrowing from domestic market, because borrowing is supposed to be for project. Okay? So it's very easy. These are all statistics on the central bank page, portal. And they are very honest. They put all of them there. So it's up to you to go and do some analysis and find out what was being borrowed. Because in some situations, Parliament approved, say, 400 billion to pay debt. Okay? But you will borrow 800 billion. When Parliament has only approved payment of 400. Okay, you know, that's just an example. But if you want the specific figures, believe me, I can give them to you.
Okay.
So what I'm saying here is that it is irrelevant where these Jubilee MPs who are or where they are going to be. They will start shifting when the public shift. And if this is not arrested, the public will shift.
Okay.
Because the public want a performing economy. You know, I saw a joke in the social media. That's why I realized the Kenyans have started thinking very seriously. The joke was that, I don't know, there was a report from somewhere there is capital flight. A lot of money has left the country, like in 4 months. And then somebody made a joke, and they said money doesn't like insecurity. Money needs to predict stability. And if they don't see that there, the money will walk away. So somebody made a joke saying even Johnny Griamete, I think it was, isn't Johnny, the guy who used to rob banks, he was called Griamete. So somebody was saying in social media, if Griamete was made a CEO of a certain bank, he asked, would you put your money there? Explaining why investors are likely to run away from Kenya. You need to give people confidence that the country economy is moving in the right direction and that there will be peace. Money doesn't like insecurity. So unless we can send that message, and that's why I'm saying that the government should stop Brabando.
Okay.
This guy says, my toe is painful. Call him, ask him, where is that pain? What can we do with the pain? But the Brabando will give the investors, both the local and international, the feeling that the country may not be stable for investment, and that will not help any of us. So for me, I would think that both of them need to step down, treat Kenya as their mother, and decide how do we clothe this mother of ours.
Okay. Actually, Martha Karua yesterday talked about he being serikali ya wezi. Wanyonge wanachwa jela. Meanwhile, Wanyonge wanachwa jela, the well-to-do or well-connected are having charges against them dropped. But this is what President William Ruto had to say at Moses Kuria's sister's funeral service yesterday. And he said, hawa tutawapanga watashanga. What do you make of that statement, Herman Manyora? But before you get to that, tell me, because Prof says that Jubilee leaders at State House meeting did not communicate anything. Did it communicate anything to you?
Of course, just confirm that our leaders are selfish. Certainly, as Mother Karua puts, we choose our leaders from a pool of the worst this country has. We choose our leaders from murderers, rapists, crooks, thieves. You know, we promote thieves, you know, this country. If you want to become a governor or something, an MP, you steal public money. Then go flashing it and we elect you. So they are selfish. When you see them there, it's, as my friend here says, it's their stomach they are taking there. The other reason, of course, then what comes to my mind is that the president is perpetuating what I've said, politics. What image did you send as a president? At a time like this, I've said the president ought to be concentrating on working on the economy. Because people are suffering. There's so much hardship in this country. There's so much pain in terms of the cost of living. People are going back to school, I think, from today. And many parents don't know where to start.
He started yesterday.
You know, cancer is ravaging the country. People are watching loved ones die. So the people can understand you are trying if they see you try. But if they see you parading politicians, bringing them on your side, then to them, politics to you and 2027 is much more important than the suffering that they are going through. So that is a bad thing. Secondly, I look at the politicians and wonder, are they sure that things will remain the way? You know, when you rush one side, you must be sure that side is going to be what it is. The pendulum, we are in a state of flux in this country. The pendulum could switch anywhere. So where would you be caught when that pendulum switches? And finally, I want to tell the government side that they should not rejoice if they take leaders from Raila's side. Because what are the consequences? Is if you isolate Raila, because then you plugged all his lieutenants and, you know, his captains, his generals, you brought them on your side. So he's isolated. Then he becomes a dangerous animal. What does he do? He takes his case direct to the people of Kenya. And that's how you must understand Kamkunji, Jacaranda, and many more others. And that becomes a very dangerous thing. You can deal with the leaders. You can talk to them. You can buy some of them. But once people are angry and they have spilled into the streets, there's very little you can do as a president. So I think that's what I see about that. The other thing you said was what? There's something else.
No, I think you've answered both my questions.
Actually, me, I was surprised that the ground, I didn't expect.
So the crowd at Kamkunji?
The crowd was big. I did not expect that because I think, naturally, because these guys have been in office for 6 months, so I would think that the Kenyans will still think that, hey, wanna give them time. But that crowd is an indication that the people are beginning to realize things are not really what they would have liked them to be. I'm just seeing this. The agent drops 1.1 billion in graft case against ex-NHIF boss.
Yes, that transpired yesterday.
Yeah, so dropping all these cases is another indication that we could be in trouble economically, because I don't believe Waji took this case to court without convincing himself that there was sufficient evidence. So once you drop all these cases, you would expect that Haji would have resigned a long time ago. So a new person come and they started dropping them, because Haji already dropped them ball when he took them to court. Because he took cases to court which he should not have taken to court.
Okay.
So
tumeruka Charles. Charles.
Yes.
Sitaki mambo ya handshake.
Yes.
Raila Odinga was categorical yesterday, but William Ruto maintained that this fella is only interested in politics of blackmail. There will be no handshake.
I think that on that one they agree. I think on that particular one, both of them are in agreement. I think we can now move away from that.
But is President William Ruto missing the point? Because they've constantly framed the narrative that, consistently, that Raila Odinga is only after a handshake.
Ruto is doing what Ruto must do. He must show Kenyans that these guys are angling for that purely. Everything they are doing, because look at it critically. And I'm amazed Prof is telling us that we should have a recount of votes. We don't even have a commission. We don't have a commission in the first instance. That's number one. That's what I'm saying. Look at it this way. That is number one. What is the evidence? Who is going to release these ballots? And the custodian of those ballots is,
we have a secretariat.
Is the IBC. Without the IBC, there is no commission. Without the commission, just a minute, without the commissioners, in fact, there was a report here just a few minutes ago.
Yes, Zainab Ismail filed it.
The commission is about the commission and the commissioners and the secretariat. Right now, we don't have the commissioners. We don't have them. So there is nothing that would happen from IBC that would be legally binding, as it were. So, number one, the process of recruiting the commissioners must be completed. Which process Raila Odinga has a problem with in the first instance, because he's saying you cannot populate IBC on your own.
But
so he says stop that process in the first instance. Then he says we want these ballots recounted. So he knows.
Said an audit.
And whatever it is. So who is going to order this audit? Has someone gone to court to order for that? Or what exactly will happen? Who will say do this, and who will be getting the instructions to do that? Yeah, because even the president must operate within the law and the constitution. Yeah, and he knows there are things he can do, there are things he cannot do. So basically, and that's what we said here, all these conversations are not meant for the average person. All these conversations are about starting a political movement. And now, you remember last week we were here, and we said it is all good that the president is in Nyanza, is being received in a very big way, but Raila will pull a move to come back and assert himself, because he cannot stop there. If he was to stop there, everyone would go like, this guy now, he's in government, he's doing very well, he's very happy. That's why his people are behaving the way they are behaving. I think to me what he's done, he's picked two things. He's picked the issue of the elections, which is critical for 2027, and of course the cost of living, which again now is something that we'll work with for the next 4.5 years. That is not going anywhere. So, and he knows that. So he knows with those two issues, it is going to sustain the plans that he has in terms of having himself on the platforms 24/7. We are having this discussion in the first instance right here, right now, because of that conversation yesterday. You can rest assured in a week or a few days, he's going to have another function. And then we'll have this discussion going on. That's what politics is all about. On the other side, the president knows their shortcomings in terms of what the deliverables were, the promises were, 100 days, 200 days, 150 days. What better way than to say, you, my brother, you are the one who is slowing us down. We have everything in place, and the only thing that we need is an environment to deliver on what we want to deliver. And that environment, you're not helping. It's not conducive when you're doing all these things that you're doing. So I think it is a balancing act, like my brothers have said. The government must focus on delivery, the government must focus on communication, because the government must talk about how you arrive at even having the commissioners in office in the first instance. Communicate properly, not through political language. Tell people this is what happens. Justify the several amendments that are there, to the amendment that was there to the IBC Act. Justify the process, talk about all these things, communicate effectively. Don't just dismiss, but that has to happen. But I think, to me, there's a lot of politics coming from both sides. What the government must do is slow down the politics and communicate more effectively on the development agenda. Explain, for example, the 4 billion, talk about the 3-point-something billion that plans to borrow, and explain how that is different from what Uhuru did around the same time. Because borrowing is not bad. Let us not lie to ourselves. All countries in the world borrow.
But this administration has made a commitment to cut back on borrowing. But
pre-election, because...
What do you mean pre-election?
Pre-election.
Your word is your bond. Pre-election or post-election. Prof. William Ruto yesterday said, this gentleman, Raila Odinga, is interested in a handshake. And he said, why? He said he had a handshake with Moi. He had a handshake with Mwai Kibaki. He had a handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta.
I think the president is clever enough to know that this time around Raila may not want an handshake, because the handshake lost Raila this election. If Raila never did any handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta, the last election would have been a coronation for Raila Odinga. Because you remember, Jubilee actually failed in the first term, not even in the second, because I believe Jubilee was the worst administration since, it was worse than the Moi administration. So, and Raila stayed outside. And Raila came from outside. There would be no William Ruto. Raila would have been elected. But having said that, though, I want to tell my friend here not to oversimplify a very serious matter. Because what creates crisis in an organization, and Kenya is just an organization like you would have in any other company, is when a serious problem is brushed aside.
What is he oversimplifying?
Now, oversimplifying the fact that we need to address electoral malpractice. Because we have had, I think, 5 elections, only one has not been contested. That is the 202 election. All the other elections, they have been contested, results have been contested. So, what I would do, if William Ruto has the best chance of sorting out this thing once and for all. Because he has 5 years. You see, the others, they will come at the end, on the middle, and there is no time. So it's not true that this problem cannot be addressed because there is no commissioners. Curricular Commission, he came with very serious recommendations. How did it come? From the contact, it was called the contacting group, the Serena team, okay? We can't have a Serena team. Look what the Americans did when there was an attempt at undermining their democracy. They formed a committee of parliament. That committee has produced a report. That report is now going into legislation so that that thing does not repeat again. So we need to take this thing serious.
But what Charles is saying,
yes,
in his defense, if you'll allow me, Charles, to hold a brief for you,
yes,
is that you've accused him of oversimplifying electoral malpractice. He's saying you cannot not address it at political rallies, communicate effectively. What exactly is Raila Odinga proposing when he says the selection panel will allow William Ruto to select the IEBC commissioners by himself? He said the people must be involved in the process, but he did not chart, you know, the way forward on that.
I agree with the Charles on that one. What I'm saying is that who has responsibility here, who is the bigger person between the government and Raila Odinga? Who has the responsibility of sorting this problem, not ignoring it? It's the government.
I think if you allow me, I know Prof is on the, because he has already pulled me into this. The Kriegler report of the 2007 election, I think we need to appreciate that post-2010, things are slightly different. Even the president, there are a lot of things the president cannot just wake up and do. Are you saying we dismiss everything? We go without IEBC and access IEBC ballots?
Okay.
Because the ballots are...
I think you should let me finish.
Okay, finish, Prof, and then Haman can come in.
What me I would like is the politics noise can go on in the field or wherever it is, but there should be backroom contact between the players. Okay, because they're putting Kenya first, not their own political survival or anything. They want the stability, the future stability of Kenya. Both of them want that. You cannot dismiss that, you know, these people, they are opponents, they are not enemies, because they are all Kenyans. So what I'm saying is there should be backroom communication between the opposition and the government in an attempt to figure out, surely, how can we have an electoral process that is proof, that the whole country agrees with, that nobody will turn around and say this or that happened.
Okay.
So that both of them can sort out problem together. That is what I'm saying. Because if we dismiss them, we say that you can have political rallies and this one, we will quarrel like this and then go to the election with the quarrel.
Okay.
I would like them to sort it now.
How likely is what Prof is proposing, that the two gentlemen will sit at a table and negotiate which way forward on IEBC, given what Charles said, that the law is very clear now that he signed yesterday the amendments to the IEBC Act?
I understand what Charles is saying, that you can't do anything now, you don't have IEBC, the law is clear. But you see, the law is as clear as declaring Ruto the president. So he's the president. But where Raila is taking the ball is beyond that. You now go beyond the law. You now enter the arena of politics, which is what he's saying. We got ourselves at a point when politics had to be superior to the law. And that's how come we came up with the National Accord and implanted it into the Constitution of Kenya, allowing the coalition government. So this is perhaps where Raila is taking the ball, beyond the simple provisions of the law, that where people will be forced to sit down. That then brings me to the issue of the handshake. You see, nobody ever wants a handshake. Nobody ever wants to share power. You must be a very strange creature to want to share power. Is like wanting to share your wife with another man, or your husband for that matter. It's not possible. So even in war, nations don't just start by signing peace. They wanna kwarusana kwanza, then they sign peace. You see what I'm saying? Now, those who talk about the handshake in a cheap way, cheapening it, I really sympathize with them. Even again, those who are saying if Raila, like my friend here, Prof, that if Raila had not gone into the handshake, he would be president. Fine. But president of which country? Perhaps there would be no country. That's how you must understand these things of handshake. To understand even Moi and Raila, you must go back to 1992. 1990-91, Moi was isolated. Hata mwenyewe alisema wakati wa upepo mkali. But he managed to divide the original fort. And then proceeded to play Kibaki against Matiba. So he knew he would survive. In 1997, after surviving, the atmosphere was becoming bad. Because the opposition had learned that you divided, they will never defeat Kanu. So they were going to gang up against Moi. And Moi was going to be isolated. And as an isolated animal, like I said, he was going to be too dangerous at his age. And that must inform part of the engagement NDP with Raila had with Moi. thinking big about the country. In 2007, those who were ravishing the country, where were they? We almost lost this country. Other countries have been lost in less serious circumstances. That's not true. Other countries have gone down the drain in much less serious circumstances. So a person who agrees to share his power, like Kibaki, we must celebrate him. A person who could lead the country. Raila was being forced by his people to be sworn in. At that time, the constitution just said by a judge, High Court judge. Supposing Raila had accepted to be sworn in, would we have had a country? In 2017, those who forget, this country was torn down the middle. And there was talk of secession. Things were pretty bad in this country. You would board a matatu. I use matatu a lot. Even now I've come by matatu. You'd board a matatu, and you were just the only one or two people. And there were not even matatus coming to town. Things had gone that bad. This town was not even functional. What kind of country are we going to have if the handshake didn't happen? So what I'm saying is, let nobody rubbish or cheapen the handshake. It is born out of serious circumstances. And it is statesmen who like Uhuru would see, yes, I can cling to power. But what am I doing to the country? I could even finish my 5 years. But what kind of country will I leave to my successor? So you are agreeing to share your power is not a simple matter. And agreeing like Raila to let your victory go is also not a simple matter which we must cheapen. So these fellows, some of them are senior up there. I wonder whether they understand the situation that leads people into a compromise situation. Compromises are not always easy to arrive at in any situation. They're always very, very difficult. At this point, as I conclude, I must say this. Let us know that this country is hurting and divided. And it's up to the leaders of this country to know that this country can go on fire anytime. Why? We have half the country, in their millions, unhappy with what's going on. You know that, eh? And hurting and in pain. The fact that people are quiet does not mean they're happy. This country has millions of people who are hurting. Let me also tell the government and the people like Raila, they may not know. This country has millions of people who are hurting and in pain, who believe the election was stolen. But the most serious part of it is that there are people in this country who have come to the conclusion that you can never get power in this country through constitutional and legal means. So they are either giving up or just burning inside. No country will be safe with the millions of people burning inside with such a rage in a manner to suggest that it's like we cannot do anything else. Finally, from those millions, there are hundreds of thousands of people in this country who are willing to die. You saw it in Uhuru Park during the swearing in of Raila. Who would have dared to go to Uhuru Park? Who? Except the daredevils. People, everybody knew, even me, I was actually in this studio on that morning with Miguna. And I was telling Miguna, I owe him an apology that nobody will go to Uhuru Park. Here, we left here at 8 with Miguna as he walked down. He wasn't even driving. He went through Intercontinental, then Uhuru Park. I knew nobody would go. The situation was so bad that going to Uhuru Park meant you didn't value your life. But people went. And therefore, leaders of this country, from both sides, and Raila and William Ruto, bravado will not help this country. They must sit down, like he's saying, even if it's in the back room. You can chest stamp, lakini huko nyuma, because the country is big, munaitana munaambia lakini hapa kitaumana, let's look at 2027. How do we go? I think I agree with it.
All right. And Charles, I'm coming to you, but there's a question you raised which I don't believe has been addressed. Prof, Charles says this, mixed messages. Raila Odinga is sending us mixed messages. He gave his blessing to Luo Nyanza to receive President William Ruto. Then he comes back and tells us, I do not recognize the legitimacy of the Ruto administration.
No, I think the go ahead for Nyanza, that was politics at its best. He was not going to stop those governors and those MPs from meeting the president. He knew that. Now, because he's not going to stop them, what he does is to tell them to agree Now, this is what he is now saying. He is saying that that time, the dossier which he is having are not come out. Now the dossier has come out. So what I'm saying is Raila is playing politics. Yes, that's why I'm saying that this is what the civilized communities do. And I like his exposition on how the handshake evolved. I did like it. I did like the handshake between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, because for me, Raila abandoned his troops. And this is why Ruto very gladly picked them and made them Asolas. Because if Raila don't go to Uhuru Kenyatta, the Asolas would have been with Raila Odinga, because that has been his territory. So he abandoned it, he joined the Kenyan elite, and therefore he became an elite. This is how he got his signed line. So I'm advocating the fact that you go chase them there, but behind the scenes, realize that your mother Kenya is naked. Both of you figure out how to clothe this mother of ours quietly. It does not even have to be public. But the idea that I will defeat him, na wao utanijua, that idea will deliver serious problem in 2027. Don't dismiss the complaint. Hear it. And then in both of you, figure out, we don't even have to know that you are talking. We don't have to know. We need to understand that in both of you have interest of Kenya at heart, because they do. These are all Kenyans with the serious, they are all differing on how to move Kenya forward. So they need to be talking behind the scenes so that we cannot be confirmed. Because what is happening, people like us, we can see it in the classrooms. And I want to agree with him, there is something not very good happening. Our students have lost interest in standing. Completely don't care whether they get an F or they get an D. When people reach there, it's going to be a question of time before they prefer dying than living. And that time says tutaputa mahali ya kujificha tukose. So we don't want that.
All right.
We need these people to get together so there is hope.
Okay.
A country is built by hope. We need hope for us created by our leaders.
All right. Yesterday, Raila Odinga did not pull his punches. He mentioned a church leader, Ole Sapit, if I understood him correctly. He said even foreign nationals conspired to steal this election. He said some foreign nations. He went ahead to say the Supreme Court conspired to steal this election. What did you make of those statements? Was he pushing it too far?
I like my brothers, yeah, and I appreciate where they're coming from, especially Prof. Every time Manyora is speaking, I can listen for 3 hours because he makes sense and his delivery is amazing. The thing is, we are in this country in 2023. Yeah, this is where we are. We gave ourselves a constitution in 2010 that every time we have a challenge, we want to throw that constitution aside and sit back and decide we can do things differently. We can actually go back to 2007, we can go back to 2004, look at how we resolved our issues of then. Prof is here telling us he was completely unhappy with the handshake. Yet Bwana Manyora is telling us that the handshake saved this country. Prof is here saying the worst administration was Jubilee. Yet my brother Manyora is saying that administration saved this country. Yeah. So my point is this: a new administration must be given that space to run its affairs. I mean, that's the way it works for me. The opposition must recognize its place, and I think that is where we need to go as a country, because it is not possible for all of us to win. I vie in Kiamba, I flop, ninaangukanga. It's not like I go making too much noise around it. I just confirm this is where I went wrong. If the problem was IBC, and IBC was being, remember my opening statement here was, the president and by extension Raila Odinga had an opportunity to give us the chairman of IBC designate and 2 commissioners designate. 6 months ago, they did not. So it means the problem they are facing now of populating IBC is a problem they saw coming, they witnessed, they just did nothing.
They had sought to do so through the BBI.
No, forget about BBI. Now I'm talking about a provision in law that allowed them to have those people in place 6 months ago, waiting for Chebukati to leave literally, and then they take those positions. They did not do anything about it. They would have had 3 commissioners in place. They did not. So now there's a problem. Ruto will perform that constitutional
No, but
role.
did you realistically expect them? Because we had 4 new commissioners. Therefore, you need somebody in office who has experience
I'm
managing
talking about
elections.
designate. I am not talking about them taking office.
Oh, okay, I get you.
They would
The
have
ones who
gotten the
come in
position
January.
and waited for
Understood
6
you.
months
Understood
before
you.
the term ends.
I've
They are
understood
supposed
you.
to fill those positions, and those guys are designated.
Okay.
They're just waiting for these guys
Got
to leave
you,
and take
got
up
you.
the position. They did not do that. So we are here having a problem with populating IEBC. 6 months ago, you had an opportunity. You were in power to do those things. You did not do anything about it. Now we have a problem. Now, what do you expect the president to do? And I think that's why this conversation, the conversation we had that Prof is saying was politics, where the governors and everyone received the president in Nyanza. That conversation should have continued with issues being raised that in the back room, where we have this problem. Can you meet the head of the opposition? Or can we at least send us so that we have a discussion around how to do this? Now the cat is already out of the bag. There are discussions in the public domain. You don't recognize this government. How do you expect Raila tomorrow to recede and say, now I recognize? How do you expect Raila tomorrow to wake up and say, now we need to populate, IBC is okay with the process that is being used to populate IBC? So to me, that's why I'm saying this is politics by excellence. You know, it will go on like this, and what needs to happen is the president has a responsibility as a symbol of national unity to calm the country down. That's where I agree with Prof. The other side, especially the leadership of the country, the executive of the country, both the CEO and the deputy, must move a notch higher and go like, this is politics that is happening. This is our explanation as to how we arrived at the decision to populate IBC this way. This is what the law says. Talk to the people. The people Raila is addressing himself to also need communication from government. And Kenyans are bright. They know where politics stops and where facts and figures start. Have a conversation around it. First, start by talking to Kenyans, because I think the problem is both bulls are just there staring at one another, you know, almost starting a fight, and everyone else is just watching on what is going to happen. The government has a responsibility to better communicate on this issue, better communicate on the allegations that have been laid out there. For example, you know, showing even Ruto's hands are tied in terms of what can you possibly do with IBC right now when IBC is supposed to be independent in the first instance. Even Bunge can stop Ruto on his tracks in terms of the commissioners he picks, because they'll ultimately make a decision on who gets appointed. They're the ones who actually give a nod after the whole process is done with. Bunge belongs to the people. Those Jubilee guys we saw yesterday are members of parliament representing people. So my point is this: let us not sit here and tell Kenyans that there is something that can be done na huko nyuma. Let the country start being calmed down fast. I think that's what is important to me. Let this talk slow down. Even His Excellency, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, has a responsibility to calm down this country. It is true, he's unhappy, all those things he's saying, but can he now tell us, for example, who will order this independent audit of the ballots?
Okay.
And how will that happen against a backdrop of a non-existent commission? Yeah. So if we can have that conversation, then maybe we can come to this studio and go like, that's a good decision, that actually can work. Because I have a problem there. What will happen? How is this supposed to happen, first and foremost? Number two, you want the president to indict himself and go like, these elections were not okay, I am resigning next week. Naturally, it's not going to happen. So okay. I think this is the conversation that needs to happen.
Okay.
Yes.
So we need to take a break, but when we come back, Prof and Herman, is it enough for Raila to base all of this on this, quote, anonymous whistleblower? Raila says, they prove that I won with a healthy margin. Our internal data showed that I won with a healthy margin. Jeremiah Kioni said, yes, it's not possible that Central Kenya gave him so few votes. Raila says Ruto only won in specific parts of Rift Valley. More on that on the other side of this break.
Daring Abroad makes me dare.
It's the only show of its kind in the world. And now, it's bigger.
And even more entertaining and informative than before.
Hapa kunaitwa Kakoe na inatubaba sana.
From London to Jersey Island.
Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo, to the scenic features of Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
And many more places abroad and at home.
I watch Daring Abroad. I like the stories which people bring.
Daring Abroad every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. with repeats every Sunday at 1:30 p.m. on NTV.
But I am a traditional man, so might as well tell you this, right? You better introduce me to your family. Even as a pre-candidate, you have to introduce them to me.
I also brought you these chocolates, Belgian, the ones you like so much. You could enjoy them in my company tonight if you want.
Yes, I would love some!
Lucy! You shouldn't get involved in adult conversations, okay?
So are chocolates considered adult things then?
It depends.
So may I ask when you were going to tell me about Bruno playing hooky?
Is that true? Bruno played hooky?
Lucy!
It had to be you.
It's the headquarters of good vibes. So I should just kneel and begin to call on Jesus because I'm a bishop.
You know, Dr. Kingori, yes, you sound like a street fighter. Where did you grab it? Unataka noma.
Kingori, let me tell you something. Mimi mtu angenipata saa hiyo nikiwa first year. Angeangukia bibi mzuri.
You know, they always say smart women, where to catch them is with love.
Kingori, I love how your suit looks. I love you in a suit. I love you in a t-shirt.
As in any example, you actually mean that.
Maifungua akili ya msee ama kichwa ya msee ukapata vile watu husema huyu jamaa ana akili.
Tunaweza toa nyama kwa huko nyuma tuweke kwa
kifua. Yes, mtu anakuwa na roho chafu sana. Na ukidive inahesabiwa?
Yes, ndio ukiwin, udive win si umewin.
Hiyo ndio tizi unafaa upige. Napiganga tu tizi ya 90 meters ya kwanza, alafu nikifika 90 meters na fly. Every Friday on NTV 7:30 p.m.
Are you convinced that you're not in love with me anymore? That you want to leave me?
Listen, I'm not going to leave you.
I know that it's been difficult and many things have happened, but I want us to fix our marriage.
So do I, Jenny.
I want us both to do something in order to fix our relationship.
So you're going to live here?
Yes, just for a couple of days.
Oh, and you weren't going to tell me anything?
Well, it's just I hadn't thought about it. Because there's nothing wrong with it, you know?
Well, yes. I just hope the two of you behave.
It had to be you.
To protect our family from germs that cause illness when it's cold, we use Dettol soap.
Dettol soap with germ defense gives you protection. When it's cold, germs are transferred in different ways. And Dettol soap's germ defense protects you from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure.
All right, welcome back to AM Live. Before we went on break, I asked a question. Who is this anonymous whistleblower and why is Raila Odinga giving what he has to say so much credence?
Now, I think you said that and then you added something where Kioni said...
Central Kenya votes.
Central Kenya votes.
Yes.
And I think those people who represented Azimio in Mount Kenya region messed. They started by saying the only votes Raila needed were 20% of the votes for him to win nationally. That talk was there, 20% to the man. Everyone was saying Raila needs 20%. Do you know what Kenyans did? They gave them 20%. To the extent that the president himself did not even get an MCA in his place. So if you want to know Raila lost, In terms of the votes that he got in Mount Kenya region, look at the poll who vied on the respective political parties that were Azimio related in Mount Kenya region. They got exactly what they were praying for, 20%, 17%, 19%. They were even beaten hands down by independent candidates in the region. Because you cannot talk about the top and then you fail to address how Raila beat the governor of Kiambu by twice the number of votes. He got 200 and something. The governor got 96,000 votes. The governor, the sitting governor of Kiambu. So, it's a leadership that was saying all we need from Mount Kenya region is 20%. So, I think to me that talk of our brother there that it is not possible he got so little votes. He actually got more than maybe would have been expected. It was a lot of votes, yeah, because in Kiambu he got over 200,000 votes. The person who would have expected to get slightly more, being the governor, having done so much for Kiambu, got 96,000 votes. So the truth be told, and let us be honest with one another, if the president could not secure an MCA position, his own MCA back home, member of county assembly, back home, okay, then what are we saying?
All right. And Prof, are the likes of Jeremiah Kioni now doing an about turn? Because we saw him, Babu, we know in that special report that was done. Remember you were in studio when we were discussing it. Yes. That special report that was done by Kennedy Mureithi on how Raila lost. Yeah. And we saw Jeremiah Kioni admit they were disorganized. We saw Babu Owino admit they beat us at our own game. Yes. Yesterday we saw them saying other things at Kamkunji. Babu Owino saying if you see Wafula Chebukati, arrest him or bring him to me, I will know what to do with him. Why the about turn? And also, who is this whistleblower? And why is what they have to say a website? How do we know this isn't the work of fiction?
Wow, Kioni, I listened to him. I actually said that the whistleblower is not anonymous. He said that he's not hiding himself. So we also know he's a man because he said himself. Now, what I think is happening, and that's why I'm saying that the country would need the truth about the election, because they are saying they have gotten now the confirmatory data from a whistleblower who is not anonymous. That's what they are saying. Of course, this thing... In
fact, they've been using whistleblowers, and I thought it was one.
No, it was one.
Yesterday he said, what?
They even told us it's under witness protection. They even said the whistleblower is actually under witness protection. They also said that. So, and this is why we are saying that if we move like this into the next election, we may very well have a problem. Because we need now to know, because even the president himself has said that there was something wrong at Mbomas. And that, in fact, he promised to form a commission of inquiry to find what is wrong. And that's what he needs to do so that the country can have the truth. And the truth will set us free, all of us. Because both of them have said something was wrong. Both the president and the opposition now, they are saying something was wrong. So we need to be told what is that which was wrong, or alternatively, nothing was wrong. And that's why I'm saying the handlers around the president, they are letting him down. Because you see, you can't imagine, we are all very foolish people in this country. Because when the president goes on a public podium and declares that there was a plan to kidnap and murder the IBC official in the name of the chairman of that commission, this is what goes on into a thinking mind. So you must be the one who saved them then. Meaning, then they were communicating with you during the process, meaning that they were yours during that process. You owned them. They were yours. That is the interpretation from a thinking person. And that's why the handlers, the people who handle the president, they need to have been more intelligent than that. They needed to allow that information to come either from the Director of Public Prosecution. That is when those people have been arrested and charged. So he can tell us why he has arrested them. Alternatively, that should come from the commission. Because right now the president has preempted the findings of the commission once it is formed. Because he has already stated those facts as fact. So the commission will have trouble Even if they find that is true, a lot of people will say, yeah, it's true because you gave them the material and you told them what to say. This is why it's very important when you have that responsibility, that kind of power, it is extremely important to become a kibaki. Keep your mouth shut until the facts are out from an independent body, independent commission. So, but to our credit, let me tell you, we are always very good people. We never ever go over the cliff. We can shout like this and you think we're on this house. The following day, we are together working on how to make ourselves peaceful, how to make ourselves happy. So me, I'm not scared. The noise doesn't scare me. I know for sure that these fellows will eventually sit together and they will eventually have a solution. But they need to have a solution, a finality of our electoral process so that this thing does not recur year after year. Is undermining our economic performance.
All right. But Herman, wasn't that the objective of BBI, at least how it started? Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga shook hands. They told us this is the Building Bridges initiative, building bridges to peace and prosperity. Yes. Didn't work then. Will it work now?
I think the idea that gave birth to BBI was the biggest thing that had happened to this country. I believe in the idea of BBI and in the handshake, principally because these two gentlemen touched and put their hand on the problem that will destroy this country one day unless we are careful. This is the problem of the two most political communities since independence, the Luo community and the Kikuyu community. The Kikuyu community with their sense of entitlement, which is part of why I'm asking Gachagua to go slow on this thing of Mau Mau, sense of entitlement, and the Luo community with the feeling of betrayal and persecution throughout our independence. And this guy said this was put in motion by our fathers. We undertake to solve that problem. Let me tell you, unless you solve that problem in this country, there will always be chaos. That explains why anytime the Luo and the Kikuyu have worked together, we've had very peaceful elections and existence in this country. So I don't really think there is much else I could add because BBI was it, according to me. Mm-hmm. And even in terms of the provisions of BBI, even Ruto, who opposed, is implementing the provisions of BBI. Central to the BBI was allocation of the counties. They agree with it and they want to increase themselves. Okay? The figures are already high. On the issue, which was also most central, on the issue of governance, the structure of governance, or government, which is the provision of a prime minister. They already have a prime minister, I mean, in one form or the other. So basically, nobody had anything against BBI. It was the politics. And the sooner we come to the realization that we need to handle that problem, like he says, and I agree with him, unless we sort out our election, the whole infrastructure, because elections can bring down a country, and they have brought down other countries. We must not think we are special. I don't agree with Prof when you say that we never go down. Let me tell you my reading of the situation today, Olive. This country is as safe as the game Raila chooses to play. That's where we are today. We are as safe where you sit there. You are as safe as the game Raila will choose to play. Because I've told you, half of this country has come to the conclusion that you can never be president in this country through a democratic means. And that's a very dangerous place to be. Raila is an old man. Old men and young people share something which they have in common. They can be reckless. And Mutahi Ngunyi quoted and told Ruto, never play with a guy who has nothing to lose. If Raila, you know Raila has held a lot of breaks in his life. If Raila didn't hold the brakes in 2007, maybe we could not be having this country as we know it. If he didn't do the same, but then people, let me tell you, maybe people don't know this, but very many people were angry with Raila because of the handshake.
Oh yeah, I'm one of them.
It is a testimony of his political genius that he managed to bring back into the fold a lot of those people. he still couldn't get others. The young men in my place, Western, who supported Hustler, said they are doing so because Raila disappointed them in 2018. You get it? So what I'm saying is, Raila could choose this particular time not to hold back. And if he doesn't hold back with the recklessness of old age or youth, kama mbaya ni mba, wacha kapasuke round hii. This country can go to the dogs. So we are as safe as the game he chooses to play. And for that reason, I say I'm top on the list when it comes to those who love this country. My love for this country is unmatched. And I say, if people who advise Ruto, if he has advisors, are listening to people like us, tell him to pick a break. You cannot dare Raila. You cannot dare Raila. You saw, if you watched, and I want his handlers to play the clip in the burial of Pauline Korea yesterday, the deputy president and the president. If they can't, let them get body language experts. Those were scared people. They were scared people. I'm a communication expert and I know. They were scared. The body language tells you they were shaky. And why were they monitoring what Raila was doing? Gachagua is saying he has received a text message from Kamkunji.
I'm telling you, that surprised me
that's the sign of a scared
they
person.
responded to Raila point by point.
The president takes on Raila in quotes. If you are the president, you shouldn't worry what somebody who is weak is doing. Let me tell you, after Jacaranda, they can be regretting why they are taking on Raila. And I know Raila. I know him a little too well. He's a man you can sit down with and make peace. That should be the approach. The approach to sit down with Raila and tell him, this is our country, all of us, for our children and our grandchildren. Let us work on the election of 2027. You don't have to be president, but let us undertake to ensure the elections we have are the best this country has ever had. Let us find a way of doing it. Even this thing of ascending to the bill of yesterday is part of the fire the president is lighting in the country. All these things, I'm telling you, they will come to zero unless Raila decides to play otherwise. Because the ball is being taken beyond the law and the constitution. When people move in this town, like everybody else, we visited Moy. I keep saying this thing at State House. Like everybody else, I was there, I think twice or so. On one such occasion, what the president told us, he State House, where's Lala? Kama wajalona piga kelele Nairobi town hii. Let nobody take that for granted. And that's what Raila was saying. You don't need more than 20,000 boys running in Nairobi here for you to lose sleep in State House. You don't. Look, if Moi could see things going bad and he gives way, he retracts, he accepts to have an IPPG, you think he did that because he loved it? The heat can be so much that, my friend, you do not fault Uhuru for going into a handshake.
Okay.
It is as simple as that. But for those of us who love this country, we would wish that both sides know that we have a country and children and our grandchildren. We need to leave them a good country. That is not served by chest thumping. I want to ask the president and Rigathi. Chest thumping are things we did when we were young people. Hata kata mstari, you know, Meru were very good. Ebruka itu one. Jump here if you are a man. That is for young boys. You can't do that. If you are dealing with a country, you can't put a line in the sun and say, Ruka kama weni mwanaume. Yeah? And I'm sure Raila is a very good gentleman. In fact, Raila annoys his supporters so much. The way he concedes. Look at the way he was taken to Sagana by Kibaki. He came out from Sagana with nothing. And the Americans had put their foot down and said there will be really power sharing. And send here no less a person than the Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice. I remember her words. There must be no illusion. It must be really power sharing. And yet Raila is taken to Sagana by Kibaki and is given leftovers in terms of ministries. People are so annoyed. That is Raila I know. Raila is a person who thinks about the country. People misinterpret that to mean weakness and selfishness. But I think he thinks about the country. And that's what I want the president to work with, that kind of Raila, the Raila that I know. that part of Raila that thinks about the future and this country. That is the Raila I want the president to appeal to, not to dare him. Daring him, you know, Raila is at an age, he can do anything.
All right. That's, as a communicator, that's an interesting title for a book, The Raila I Know.
Yeah, The Raila
So,
I Know.
Charles, I'm curious, what was your reading of William Ruto's body language? I see here, Ruto unshaken is how the Star has described it. Herman says his body language communicated something else to him. Because William Ruto took time to address, for example, Martha Karua talked about, if Raila was your president, now you would not be paying school fees. She said, this guy, ever since he came into power, the cost of maize meal has gone up. I think it's Raila Odinga who said, look at your electricity bill, how much you're paying in taxes. Things cannot continue like this. So William Ruto, in his response, says, the cost of maize is what it is because of the mistakes you made with the previous administration. And then he went on to say on the question of taxes, he said they're now collecting from 70%, they're now collecting 90% taxes. And he said that a road that had stalled in Gatondo for 1.5 years now can kickstart because of his government. Did William Ruto, appear to you a man shaken or unshaken?
Well, this is politics. I will keep saying that. It is politics. Of course, dangerous politics at times. That's a reality. But let me start by saying BBI was a good thing. If you ask me, BBI was a good thing, less a few things. And even if you look at, number one, this process never went to the people, per se. The ultimate decision should have come from the people. They would have voted for it at a referendum. It went to court. It was stopped by the courts on 2 issues only. This is how I know BBI should come back. The issues were, number one, the participation of the president in terms of initiating that process. Yeah, that was wrong in as far as the courts are concerned. Then number 2, domiciling of constituencies, not the creation of the same, but deciding as the proponents of BBI, the promoters of the bill, that these constituencies will be in A, B, C, D counties. That was a problem in as far as the courts are concerned. So the thing is, if we are to look at BBI and look at strengthening devolution, for example, and devolved units, as it were, that is something that everyone was big on. We are talking about secession was something that my brother Manyora here mentioned. And secession means you're not happy where you are. You want power closer to you. The bottom line is we have 47 counties that are doing very badly because they never get their money in time. They never get sufficient resources. They cannot be able to have own source revenue. So it means devolution needs strengthening so that services can get closer to the people. A lot of things about BBI, even the things that we mentioned here, were totally good. My point is that thing should be picked from where it is, dusted by the president and his team, reintroduced, but now in a proper way, remove some of those contentious issues that created so much confusion and made even the judiciary unhappy, especially on the issue of the ombudsman and all those small little things that we can deal with later. Let it go back and then it get implemented. In terms of who is shaken, who is not shaken, I think this is not a good time to even have that discussion. Remember, Ruto got elected because he criticized at every opportunity the issue of the handshake. He said the handshake is about the opposition joining government so that now services will not be given to the people. After all, there is no one to question. So I want to believe he should be steadfast in that regard. And the attempt to introduce the office of the official opposition leader through an amendment to the Constitution, basically, I think he's speaking to the same. He's saying, I want to make sure this office, not necessarily Raila's office, but the official opposition leader's office is strong to the extent that it can help, look at what the executive at the national level is doing and help Kenyans, look at that and make decisions. My take is, what should happen now that this is already out? I think the issues that Raila raised should be addressed properly.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there should be a proper communication on that, official communication from government on the specific issues that were raised that he had a problem with, communicate around them effectively, give facts and figures, yeah, and release it to the general public so that there is that official communication.
Okay.
That way, the government becomes the bigger person.
All right.
The government, Raila had 6 million voters. I think that one you cannot wish away. That's a fact. He had 6 million voters. He was beaten by slightly over 200,000 or close to 300,000 votes. So basically, he's a big person in terms of the support he enjoys. That needs to be looked at so that even as we grow as a country, even those people that supported Raila Odinga, the government they have at the national level is the government of William Ruto. Okay. So they want to feel part of that government and explaining to them what is going on. The issue of what was addressed yesterday at that funeral are things that can be now released to the general public in terms of the steps that are being taken to deal with the cost of living, the price of unga, how it moves from 200 to 170, then ultimately to... That is a conversation that Kenyans want to hear. Yeah, we need to address issues of the rains that that were expected, have not. Though if that discussion is not out from government officially in a manner that is believable, then we continue mark timing at a halt on the same spot. And I think that's not what anybody would want.
Okay. I was just looking through the comments, and I see one here from Frank Nyatindo, and he says, Herman Manyora, very true. If William Ruto won fairly and he has the most elected leaders, why is he attempting to weaken the opposition and insult Raila Odinga together with his mouthy and noisy DP every now and then? Speaking of the deputy president, and Herman has spoken about pumping the brakes. You know, he's called upon the leaders, the national leaders, Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua, to pump the brakes. Raila Odinga appeared quite incensed. Rigathi Gachagua got under his skin. And he said, this fella, if I was jailed 3 times, if I was not intimidated by the late Moi, you will not intimidate me. Martha Karua used the terminology, and I used it earlier. High school bullies, we are not Form 1s. Is Rigathi Gachagua, is it a case of foot in mouth, or is it a calculated thing, do you think?
I think I would say if you have an opponent, the best thing you do is to rattle the opponent. You talk the way Gachagua is talking, and they rattle the fellow, so that there is no break on what they are planning if they can come out. And so it couldn't be a strategy too, even though I think the way I know Gachagua, that's probably just his nature. It is nature. But something should worry the president. 80 million of us chose not to participate in the last election. We chose not to vote. That should worry the president, because these people felt that their vote will not make a difference. Because if they thought that they can make a difference, the 80 million they would have voted. So those who did not vote, that 80 million should force these people into a conversation. Because I know for sure both of them care about the country. They are both patriotic. That should force a conversation. Now, the headline here is shaken. This is about to zero the newspaper. And I like my friend here, he said, the issue is not who is shaken or who is shaken. The issue is that is there a problem to solve? And I like to start there. And I think that was a good reasoning. Because if there is a problem, then let's solve that problem.
Okay. Last word, Herman, there's a story that Prof referred to in the Daily Nation, and that was the one on the DPP taking the decision to withdraw charges. That is on page 8. Haji drops 1.1 billion shilling graft case against ex-NHIF boss, and that is Geoffrey Mwangi. And there's a question that hasn't been answered for me, and perhaps this will be your last word, Herman. It was alluded to yesterday in Kamkunji that the justice system may have been compromised by the Kenya Kwanza administration. In fact, Raila Odinga called out the Supreme Court. It's not the first time he's done that. He went as far as mentioning a leader of the church, and he even mentioned foreign nations who he claims were involved in stealing the election. Did he take it too far?
Whether Raila took it too far must be understood within the context of what I've been trying to say this morning. That Raila is tossing this game beyond the normal confines. You get it? When we were young and we were annoyed, sometimes if you didn't want us to share in the food, we could throw mud into that food. Or you know, if you think you can have it to the exclusion of all of us, let us spoil it for all of us. That's where this country seems to be getting. So if you look at it that way, then nothing is off limit. Nothing is off limit. He can say the Americans, the British were involved. It's not very characteristic of Raila, you know that. Eh? He's always very guarded, especially in the past 15 or so years. He's been quite a statesman, quite guarded. He can talk about the Supreme Court in the manner he did. Now, whether you're asking whether I think I agree with him or not.
And is it enough to simply restrict the conversation to who populates the IBC then?
What is important, what Raila, I think...
If we are to restore trust in the process.
Yeah, what Raila is trying to say is that if anybody thinks it is business as usual, they are mistaken. That if you think you are assenting something and you are going to form an IBC, you are mistaken. That will not work. If you think you can have elections in this country, again, without us sorting out the mess, then again you are mistaken. And because you do not have the instruments of power which Ruto has and the government, then what option, what recourse do you have? The answer is Kamkunji, it's Jacaranda. And they will become ugly and uglier by the day. What normally happens, as sure as day comes after night, and vice versa, those who are grandstanding today will have to agree, and they will come to the table to talk. My advice this morning, which I want to repeat, is why not do it now?
Okay.
Why do you want to be forced to talk when so much damage and harm has already taken place? Why? Why not talk now? I can assure you, if the president wants to talk about our elections in this country, that should be enough to stop Raila from anything else. Say, look here, this is our country. What has happened. You may have had 8 million and I could have had even 3, but I'm the president. So you have to accept I'm the president. We sit down and talk about the future of this country, specifically about how to have proper elections. We leave nothing, we talk about everything except who is the president of this country. If you do that, you have disarmed Raila, and the country is safe. But if you chase thumb and the Jacaranda is followed by something else, my friend, you will still have to talk.
Okay.
Under circumstances over which you may have not as much control as you would if you did it now.
All right. So naka mambo bado handshake won't cure rubbish 2022 poll is what Raila had to say yesterday at Kamkunji. With me this morning, we've had Hamad Manyora, political analyst, Charles Munyui, a governance consultant and governance expert, Professor Gitile Naituli, who says he is a man of peace. Former NCIC commissioner. My name is Olive Burrows. I will see you on Friday, but my colleague Zainab Ismail will be here tomorrow and on Thursday. Good morning.